Hello, Dale Majors here, and welcome to day number 2 of our New Year's Resolutions Masterclass. And today we're going to talk about motivation, and I want you to think, have you ever been unmotivated? Have you ever been super motivated? And what I want to talk about today is the times where you've been really motivated and how you can learn from those experiences to give yourself the conditions to have that type of motivation again. And I'll tell you that I consider myself a very motivated person, and I've gone through some definite unmotivated spells. And if you stick around to the end, I'll tell you about a time when everyone else around me would have been baffled as to why I was unmotivated, but I just couldn't really muster the energy to do what I needed to do. So by the end of the video, you're going to have a framework you can use to bring motivation and breathe motivation into the different roles that you care about in your life. So let me share the framework with you. First, you need a gap. I call it the motivation gap. And what I mean by gap is that it's the disparity between what you currently have and what you want. So let me tell you, one of the times I was most motivated in my life, where I had a huge motivation gap, was when I was 21 years old. I just returned from a religious mission for my church, and I had $80 to my name, which I quickly withdrew to buy a Palm Pilot to be more organized. Yes, I've had a Palm Pilot since I was in 7th grade. Anyways, I didn't have anything to my name. I was sharing a room with my younger brother, and we had a great house and I had plenty of food, but there was no extra resources, right? So I was sharing a room with my brother, and I really wanted to start dating and get married and pay rent and have a family and provide and be a provider. But the difference between where I was and where I wanted to be was very vast. So I had to try hard to not get discouraged, and I was quite optimistic, but I definitely had the gap. I had a need. I knew where I was, I had a current state, but I had this dream of myself, this much higher vision of where I could be, and it motivated me, but it didn't quite motivate me to action until I figured out more steps. Besides a gap, you also need the realization of pain, where if you failed to close the gap, it needs to hurt in some way. So you need to realize that if you, for some reason, don't close that gap, that you're not going to feel very comfortable. And in my case, I felt that. I really wanted to have that thing. I really wanted to be established. I wanted to make a name for myself, and I wanted to close that gap. So I had the pain of failure. I had that realization that if I failed, wouldn't feel very good. So I want you to imagine, how would the normal person feel if you had a big gap and then that normal realization of pain and failure? Discouraged. We wouldn't feel very good. And this is where the real kicker comes in, that you need to be motivated. And it is your action plan. You need to come up with an action plan. So I want you to imagine that you're standing on one side of a cliff, and say that it's 15 feet wide. You can't jump across it. It's just too big. It's too wide to jump across. You would die. But then imagine your pain as you look across the cliff and you see all of the amazing things on the other side of this canyon that you're separated from. The other side of the cliff, you're thinking, wow, there's fruit trees and there's food and there's a big party going on. Whatever it is, there's things that you want that are on the other side, but you can't cross it. So you've got your gap, you have your realization of pain, the lack of having all those things on the other side, but then you look to your right and you see a big pile of 15-foot and 20-foot long boards, and you see a bunch of rope, and you see, as your mind kind of turns that around, you realize that you could build a bridge. How do you feel the minute your idea comes in and you realize that you could build a bridge? You're motivated, you're excited. Even if you're tired and hungry, you're going to say, wow, this is amazing. I'm going to get to building because I can already see myself participating in the party on the other side of the canyon. This is awesome. And then you're going to tirelessly work. The question is, how often do we get stuck wanting something new that we don't have, realizing the pain of not having that, but we don't have a plan to work on? So if we don't feel that any of the actions that we could take are going to take us there to the other side, to the party on the other side of the canyon, then we're not really going to work towards that. So many times we create these New Year's resolutions and we say, we're going to go to the gym 3 times a week. That's what we're going to do. But then we stop going and we don't really believe that going to the gym is going to turn us into Hugh Jackman, Wolverine, and make us buff and awesome. We just don't believe it. So the trick is creating a plan, an action plan that we actually believe in. And that's what I'm going to cover in days 3 and 4. So your homework for day 2 is to decide on the different roles in your life that you want to build resolutions around. So think about those areas in your life that you really care about: father, child, employee, whatever those are. For me, I say owner of a physical body, maybe because I have a lack of vocabulary skills, but what am I going to do to take care of myself? All those different roles, physical, emotional, and intellectual and spiritual. Identify those roles that you want to create resolutions around, and tomorrow we're going to further give you the tools and the framework so you can start filling out goals that you actually believe in. At the end of the 5 days, you're going to have an action plan that you're actually excited about. I told you at the beginning that I was going to share an experience where I wasn't motivated, and that actually came right after I sold my company because I closed my gap and I didn't have a gap to focus on anymore, which would be so surprising to people from the outside in that, wow, Dale, you reached all your goals. What happened? Why aren't you as happy? We really thrive on having a gap and being motivated, and all of us have the potential to do it. So in my case, as a college kid who had the gap, who had the pain of failure, I came into an opportunity where I was really discouraged and thought that I could possibly fail. So I was on this other side of the cliff. I didn't have my action plan yet, but then I had this epiphany. So the specific problem was I bought too many bike parts. We weren't listing them fast enough. We didn't have enough cash. And I was just discouraged until, and this actually came after an argument and kind of a fight about this problem with my dad, but the epiphany that I had was I saw an action plan. And the minute I had an action plan that I trusted in, I was excited and I was fine again. And in that case, I decided I was going to wake up the next morning at 2 a.m, and before school I was going to list bike parts for 5 hours before school. I ended up doing that for several weeks in a row, and I woke up before 4 a.m. for over 4 months, and I was able to catch up and get all of those problems fixed. We doubled our revenue. We went from $20,000 a month to $40,000 a month. That's the same company that we grew to $10 million in revenue. So the magic there is that the minute I had an action plan, I was willing to do all the work. So a lot of us, we wonder why we're not motivated. It's because we don't have an action plan we believe in. So come back tomorrow and we're going to teach you how to create that plan. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.